Welcome back to another episode of The Basement. I'm your host, Wyatt. Well, this past week was the first ever US release of genetically modified mosquitoes because instead of getting rid of the bug that nobody likes, we decided to make it bigger, better, faster, stronger, and then release it back to the public. And the 13-year-old has become a woodworking sensation. Now, I don't know what inspired this child to have a midlife crisis at the age of 13, but my thoughts and prayers go out to you. And a French school kept its classrooms open throughout the pandemic no matter the cost, and about 20 students lost loved ones, and some are saying the price was too high. Only some. That means there's people there that were like, no, this price was definitely worth it. Could you imagine talking to one of them? They'd be like, oh, Timmy, I'm really sorry to hear about your mom and your dad and your brother and your grandma and your sister and your dog. But I think it was worth it. I mean, otherwise, I might not have been able to learn long division the same. I'm sure this is how they would have wanted to go. Our movie review for this week is Lady Bird, which starts out with two people in a car listening to an audiobook of The Grapes of Wrath, which is the most boring, dullest book I've read in my entire life. So it's not a great start to the movie. A lot of the movie also takes place in Catholic school, and from what I could tell, it was very, very boring. Not as boring as Grapes of Wrath, but still pretty boring. And the only reason the main character goes to Catholic school is because her brother went to public school and he saw someone get stabbed outside the building. Probably just because they were being threatened with going to Catholic school. A lot of conversations in this movie also feel like very clunky and weird. Like it just feels like you taught two robots 20 words of English and then told them to have their first conversation ever with each other. And one character is responsible for these weird conversations. He tries to act like all cool and mysterious, like he'll read a book and be smoking cigarettes and stuff. And then he'll say stuff like, very baller and hella tight. You can't read a book and say those things. It makes no sense. I mean, this movie takes place in like the early 2000s. People didn't say that much in the early 2000s. It's very out of place. The mom in this movie is also terrible. Very, very awful. She's so mean for no reason. Her daughter will like come home from school and say something like, oh, people thought I lost weight at school today, or that I look thin. And her mom will say, they're just saying that. You look awful. You're fat. It makes no sense. I have no idea why she does it. And then she just yells at her daughter for not talking to her. She's awful, and I hate her. This episode of The Basement was brought to you by the upcoming holiday, Mother's Day. Let me know in the comments This episode of The Basement was brought to you by the upcoming holiday, Mother's Day. If you have any great Mother's Day gifts or plans, let me know about them in the comments because I'd love to read about them. Not because I need any ideas. I definitely have a ton of ideas for Mother's Day that I'm totally planning on celebrating. I didn't forget that Mother's Day was a thing. I always remember, and I'm very thankful for my mother and definitely have something planned. It'll be a great Mother's Day. Thanks for watching another episode of The Basement. I'm your host, Wyatt Mency, and don't forget to let me know what movie you want me to review next down in the comments. I'll see you next time.